My name is Brianna Allen, and I'm the creator of the Monologue Collective, which is a project where self identifying mothers share anonymous stories among an artistic community exploring the complexities of motherhood. The stories are contributed from Alaska to Maine and everywhere in between. I began the project when I was pregnant with my second child in 2019. The website hosts an archive of contributions from over 200 mothers touching on choice, birth, postpartum, grief, community, identity, all of the things. I'm able to share this work with you with the support of the Rasmuson Individual Artist Award Project Grant, which I received last October 2025. This project was born from a need for human connection as I entered the very strange world of motherhood. When I became pregnant, I noticed women would come up to me and just start telling me stories, seemingly prompted by my new belly. I know this happens to most of us, but I was taken by how they would stop, lean in, and lower their voices like it was a special ops advisory sort of thing, told with this confessional vibe in the grocery store as I'm squeezing avocados and sniffing lemons. Stories ranged from bodily fluids to Santa Claus, and I loved it. They were dark and gross and surprising and hilarious, and most were told without either of us blinking at all. I began to feel that good storytelling really hits nerves. Complexity and vulnerability make us feel human. And this social practice of collecting stories would become a main line for both my mothering and my art practice. Once I began to solicit for monologues on social media, they poured in. It was evident that we don't have a place to share completely open without shame or judgment. I had like 37 great stories collected and thought I'd try to collect 50 until my writer friend and later book editor, Mercedes Harness, said, "Well, you could collect 50, but 100 is better." She unknowingly gave me a carrot, and I respond quite well to carrots. On June 24th, 2022, Roe v. Wade was overturned. And that was precisely the moment I realized that my solicitation for monologues had not explicitly included stories about a woman's choice to become one or not. And with this loss of constitutional freedom, I knew the Monologue Collective could be the place to share important stories, as those at this moment. When I was denied a grant which would help me amplify these voices and these stories in a book, I doubled down and raised the money. So, along with many other contributions, we raised $5,000 to self-publish and print this book. I hired my editor, Mercedes, an interior layout designer from New York, after I learned what an interior layout designer was, and I published and printed off my first 400 copies, which I was able to gift and mail to each of the 84 contributors of Volume 1. The book led to readings, and readings led to staged performances, which would become a dynamic offering in association with visual art exhibitions I was a part of. This might sound complicated, but this is what following the work looks like and is what being a multidisciplinary artist means for me. I'm a painter who stumbled into literary arts via a social art practice, who eventually stumbles into playwriting, who also likes to perform herself, but also is still a painter. I experimented with soliciting monologues through e-prompts and text prompts with groups of committed anonymous mothers for weeks or months at a time. I've partnered with my local reproductive health clinic to get a pulse on their communities during this time. I mean, I really love to send out a random prompt to friends like, "Hey, suddenly you hear your child say, 'Mom, look.' Tell me what your child shows you." This particular prompt inspired my first 10-minute play, which I wrote last year and is now listed on the New Play Exchange. I was able to workshop the play at the Valdez Theater Conference, a national playwriting conference that selects new plays from all over the country to be read and paneled by industry professionals from Chicago, New York, LA, It's a 1-week-long art camp for adults that I highly recommend. Built to Push is a performance of mine developed over time. In 2018, I basically oriented my birth push plan with my response to the 2016 election. My favorite part about this particular performance is what I learned the day after, that one audience member thought my belly was the prop, not the barbells. I came out to Jimi Hendrix's electric guitar national anthem and then transitioned to Salt-N-Pepa's Push It, just for some context. In 2024, Built to Push was adapted to a pop-up public performance in San Francisco, where I push-pressed, lunged, and squatted through Golden Gate Park, showing my supreme strength as an American mother while handing out art prints with love notes, thanking mothers in the park for all their work that day and every single day for that matter. I had 4-lane captive audiences at every traffic light. My stage was the entire crosswalk, 30 seconds, every red light encored with emphatic drivers honking and cheering me along. The latest Built to Push adaptation is when mom goes from prego to ergo baby carrier. This act was part of a show I produced and directed called The Creative Pursuit for Bodily Autonomy in August 2025. 3 other performance artists joined me with a variety of acts for a 50-person audience I welcomed in my home, which is another thing I highly recommend doing. I shared a monologue performance at this same live show called Boarding Motherhood, which I hope to turn into a 1-person play. This particular act was a true culmination moment for me because my love for the stage first came from my mostly philanthropic burlesque troupe, which I founded way before motherhood. And here I was with, well, mostly the same audience, but this time as a playwright and speaking to the audience with false eyelashes on, which is a bigger step than it might sound. And what of painting? How does painting fit into this? And isn't painting motherhood supposed to look like pastels, smooth, soft, easy, happy, light, comfortable? Doesn't it look like clean laundry and sound like a Ray LaMontagne soundtrack? But I wasn't getting pastel-colored stories. I was getting stories about incompetent cervixes and nipple stimulation and poop and balance and pressure and expectation and loss of identity and asking for help, holding, fixing, while being the center of it all. Portraiture is something I've always been drawn to. Mother of portraits are paintings of mothers with their hands full and their own identities forever changed. Early motherhood moms are surrounded by their own mothering ritual, symbolized by painted cardboard props in the background for the child's school play, balancing a full load, no matter the size of the child. Beloved art collections on the walls of a home, the stool found when they were thrifting nearly every weekend together that summer, a mother's code to her children for joy in finding simple found treasures. This ongoing series of portraits invoke a kind of mother code sentiment that feels at home in community and gives witness to my own admiration for a mother's world-building, world-holding capacity. What might be different if mothers were understood to be the creators that we are? These are painted from photographs that I've taken in their homes, in their nests of toys and curtains and treasured Pokemon cards. For me, the focus is always the mother, and for her, the focus is usually them. Chubby hands and dangling feet are the kind of precious things early motherhood holds for me, and those things require a constant holding, lifting, anticipating that holds it together all at once. The titles in these portraits make space for all of the mother's children. Her stillborn, her stepchild, the one in her belly, and the 2 beside her, because they each inform who she is now. They profile her kind of expertise, her kind of wounds, her true kind of mother. The voids bring a richness, and the voids bring her power. Stuffies, dried bouquets, wedding photos, the smallness of a dry cabin, a half-mile up a soft mud trail out East End Road. if you know, you know, can especially feel like walking into an ethereal, magical still life. I've found Alaskan homes to feel especially curated in a wild, homegrown kind of way rather than manicured or polished. Over time, I watched monologues grow some legs and start to morph organically. Watching it from a seat in the trusting hands and bodies of other artists is like I continue to understand the assignment better and better. Holding others' stories and sharing them was part one. Part two is trusting myself to follow where it would lead me. Listening deeply and sitting in discomfort among strangers through stories that challenge mainstream narratives is group work. It turns down the noise and turns us inward towards our own inner beliefs. How do we view care work? What relies on it? How does the freest country in the world feel about mothers? What is the fear behind those who want to control? As one brilliant contributor said, moms are always the scariest person in the room. Might be time to be reminded of that. Artistic expression is a barometer for culture. Feed it like our lives depend on it, because it definitely does. Theater makes the present moment the treasure itself, and it's there for the taking. It can remind us of the kind of lives we deserve to live, the kind of lives we want to author. The ebb and flow between playwriting and painting is quite different, one very insular and the other the most collaborative art form of all. I like the duality between the two. I'm only about 2 years into playwriting, and it's building ritual into my life and into my broader creative practice. Theater feels like an interconnected mycelium network, like a gateway to the nervous system and real time for people. Whereas painting feels like a window inside a familiar home. I'm interested in traversing deeply in both mediums and simplifying how people come to art and to themselves. And when I say nervous system, I mean it. My short play, Mom Look, includes a mother and her infant. When I wrote it, I envisioned a doll as an infant prop, but when it was produced, the actor who played the mother happened to have an infant, whom she was keen to include on stage. When I saw the play, I was just waiting for the unscripted to happen. And that was precisely what people loved about it. Experiencing the baby on stage got us all to the point quite quickly. We were all on the edge with the mother. It was a true social experiment that brought the drama to the stage. For mothers, for non-mothers. FYI, neither babies for the production or for this staged reading cried one time. My panel at Valdez Theater Conference called the baby the worst actor of the whole conference. Out-of-body perspectives and the color black challenge the rose-tinted glasses usually worn while reflecting upon our mothering. This body of work honors the grief in motherhood, but more as the pearl it becomes over time. It's a good kind of grief. But to not acknowledge the grief skims on the true haul of it. Including black in paintings about motherhood feels rather rebellious, and I realize how dramatic that might sound. But I've never used black until this year. Painters are encouraged to mix their blacks for their variety and complexity and nuance. So bringing black into these precious moments, these true, definitely candid moments, feels sincere. Motherhood and art making are not complementary or compatible when the narrative is selective, when it doesn't include the mess and the try and the muscle. I've found the full experience of mothering to be an invitation for self-reconciliation, a learning and unlearning of habits and wishes. I've found it to be a confirmation of intuition, an expression of power that exists in my cellular memory, but seems to be suppressed by systems that fear it. I will have my second solo exhibit this year in October, featuring the completed series of Mother of portraits. Next summer, they will be exhibited at the Pratt Museum from June through August of 2027. I'll also include my first full-length play as part of that exhibit. which is currently titled Motherhood Small Craft Advisory. There will also be an interactive component to incorporate my social practice of gathering true stories about motherhood. I really felt compelled to end on this image. This is my house. My kids surrounded in clean and dirty laundry. There are cups with no lids in this picture on a light carpet, and that is definitely a sheep getting castrated. These monologues have absolutely bolstered my creative backbone and encouraged me to explore my own identity as a mother and as an artist, as a friend. It's welcomed me to hold that space that I am in and want to be as a mother and as an artist. It's in large thanks to every contributor of the project so far. I hope you feel seen, heard, and held by the audiences who support this project.